Shangi Kompam Yuto Sho. And let's do the four limitless contemplation. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of their happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jentam je dewatang dewe jutang den pa jutik dungal tang dungal chitang drawa jutik dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawa jutik nearing chaktang ni tandrawe tanu jempola ne pa jutik. So everybody, I decided it's time to change the subject matter. I think you've all had enough of me teaching on the copper-colored mountain. And then I decided, okay, I'm going on to dreams, but I want to say to all of you that I really want you, just let me get all these notes in here, then I'll decide where I'm going to from there. But I called it Dreams, the Sleep State, and All Possibilities, because dreams and the sleep state have infinite possibilities. And when I wanted to see what I should do, I decided the best way to do this subject matter with all my extensive dream material over the years that Bern knows about is to do what comes naturally to my heart. You know, just whatever comes to my heart, that's what I'm going to do. It's such a vast subject. And this time, I want to cover it from the Western point of view, as well as the Tibetan Dream Yoga viewpoint. I want to do both, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because many, many years of experience I've had with dreaming, the Western way, then waiting and going into the Eastern way, you know, the Buddhist philosophy. And actually, I was thinking that because I did so long over it, that maybe I should help all of you to do a little bit of that work of the samsaric dreams and the Western side, because maybe that's a good idea. I'll tell you in a few moments why I decided that when I looked at the material, and I've got so much material, you've got no idea. Okay, so I'm just going to go about it as I go along, and I've got so many things in my mind, it comes tumbling out, but that's one of the problems I have with teaching, you know. I'm never short of material to teach, but I splab too much. So maybe I should shorten it a bit. But what I want you to do is, I know you know a lot about this subject, Nicola, but you know what? I want people to butt in all the time. I want people to butt in with your own dream material, with your own understanding, because I'm not going to rush this. There's so much to discuss, even from my earlier career. There's so much to teach you about. And I thought to myself, let's not rush and let me race through all of this and then in the end come out. Let's just do a couple of sessions and you interrupt me on the way. I really am very happy to have it more of a discussion group than anything, because I got so much out of my dream things, both when I did it in the Western way and when I did Tibetan Dream Yoga, both of them. And it is interesting to change your ideas, hello, Denny, and to look at some of the material in both ways. But let's start off, Bern, with the prayer that I'd like all of you to have, this little prayer of Dajjam Rinpoche, because I really think it's an excellent prayer and I do it every single day. And it's a good idea to do this prayer before you go to bed. It's short and it's really, you are able to do it. Okay, so let me give this to you so you can look at it. Wait, careful, careful. Okay, let's say it all together. Okay, relax. Evelyn didn't mean to trip over you, okay? Right. Essence of all Buddhas of the three times, Lord of the oceans of Buddha families and mandalas, precious, incomparably kind root Lama, think of me. Bless my mind stream, I pray. Grant your blessings that I recognize dreams as dreams. Grant your blessings that I emanate and transform appearances in dreams. Grant your blessings that dreams arise as the clear light. Grant your blessings that the clear light blends with every aspect of life. Now, when he wrote it at the bottom, Dajjal Rinpoche said, I, Janana, wrote this, Janana being wisdom. He wrote it from his wisdom mind. It's a really good prayer. None of you would have this prayer probably, but I use this prayer every single day. And I think it's a really good prayer because it says everything from the beginning to the end. Okay, I'll give you a copy, not right now. Okay. All right, leave it for now. It's fine. Okay, thanks, Boone. That's what I want. And then let's go to my usual quotes that I always do in dream material, which is from Chang Tzu. And I have to go back to them because I always give them whenever I gave talks on Chang Tzu. You're smiling, Boone. Chang Tzu in 350 BC said, once upon a time, I, Chang Tzu, dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither to all intents and purposes, a butterfly. I was conscious only of following my fancies as a butterfly and was unconscious of my individuality as a man. Suddenly I awakened and there I lay, myself again. Now, I do not know whether I was a man dreaming I was a butterfly or whether I'm now a butterfly dreaming I am a man. Okay, very important quote, because when you look at the dream material, you become many different things in your dream material, and it's really important to understand that quote. And the other quote of Chang Tzu is, one man will dream of the banquet hour, but wake to lamentation and sorrow. Another will dream of lamentation and sorrow, but wake to enjoy himself in the hunting field. While men are dreaming, they do not even perceive it is a dream. Some will even have a dream in a dream, and only when they're awake do they know that it was all a dream. And so, only when the great awakening comes upon us shall we know this life to be a great dream. Very important quotes. Okay, and then two other quotes that I want to give, and then we'll go straight on. Kalu Rinpoche said like this is just setting the tone, and then you're going to pick out what you really want, because I've taken different viewpoints for the dream material. Kalu Rinpoche says, at the time of death, the body becomes a house abandoned by its inhabitant. As the functioning of the senses is a manifestation of the mind, when the mind leaves the body, sense organs can no longer function. However, these organs themselves are only a product of the mind, and the mind can create these organs anew in other circumstances of existence. That's when we stop just looking at our human existence as everything. There are many other existences. We have proof of this each night when we dream, says Kalu Rinpoche. At that time, we no longer perceive the external world, but we see with our eyes of dream. We hear sounds with the ears of dream, and so on. This is only a product of our mind. We know this by the experience of the dream. Okay, so we're talking about all of this. Just one last one of Nicola's favorite, of Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Okay, and he says, we spend a third of our life, and that if some of you haven't read his book, it's really worth it. The Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep is very, very good. Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche says, we spend a third of our life sleeping, and this can be used for practice. No matter who we are, every day ends the same. We shut our eyes and we dissolve into darkness. We do so fearlessly, even as everything we know of the me disappears when we go into the dream state. After a brief period, images arise, and our sense of self arises with them. We exist again in the apparently limitless world of dream. every night we participate in these most profound mysteries, moving from one dimension of experience to another, losing our sense of self, and then finding it again, and yet we take it all for granted. We wake in the morning and continue in real life, but in a sense, we're still asleep and dreaming. The teachings tell us that we can continue in this deluded, dreamy state day and night, or wake up to the truth. So it's really, really important. All of these things tell us everything we really need to know about the dream state and about everything that happens to all of us. And each of them say the same thing. The Tibetan masters all say the same thing. This life is a dream. Then we have the life where we go into the dream. Then we have the life where we go beyond the dream. Then we have the life where we die and go into another dream, or go wake up to reality. In all of them, it's up to you, deciding what you want to do and how you want to be. But to imagine that this life is really the life that is everything and everyone, and that this I and me self is everything that we are, is to really put a lid on who we are a lot. Okay, now before I come that, I've asked the question, why do we dream? And for what purpose do we want to use our dream world? Now, there are many ways of answering those questions. What's interesting is when you look at the psychological theories of dreaming, it's very interesting because the Tibetan masters and the Buddhist masters knew those things long before the Western people came in and decided, oh, this is this. When Stephen LeBeur said, oh, there's something called lucid dreaming. Oh, you know, that Freud said this, and Jung said this, and this one said this. Our masters knew all these things long ago, and they just moved past them. The reason being that one of the actual features of our human existence is attachment. And even to your dream stuff, to be attached to it is really limiting yourself completely and totally in every way. It really, really is. And so when I did the original Western dreaming, my feeling, you know, how I felt, I did Western dreaming things for about 10 years. I must have had this amount of dream journals that I took, which recently I took the whole lot out of the cupboard like this and threw them into recycling because I had no desire to ever look through them or what I wrote about them or anything. I just threw them all away after all that work. But maybe the work was done and then you could move forward. But my feeling now about a lack of involvement in the content of dreaming, okay, the content is the same as my lack of involvement in negative emotions, because I see negative emotions in a completely different way. I never respond. I still get angry. I still get upset. I don't get jealous. Jealousy's never been anything that I've ever had, I've got to tell you. I still get passionate about things. I still get proud about things. I still get all of those things, but I look at them from a completely different viewpoint. So it's very, very interesting that I was always involved with people who dreamt a lot, and I was involved with people who were really involved in their negative emotions. And then I went through all that stuff myself, came out the other end and decided, oh, they're just transitory, they're just temporary, they're just impermanent, and I moved through them very easily. But the thing is that I realized when I was looking at that material, in retrospect, it's clear to me that even before I got to Buddhism or anything else, I had a very clear perception of Eastern philosophy. It just grabbed me in a way that was unbelievable. And I needed to give people help in the areas of the psyche, of the human psyche. I needed to give them help, but I knew somewhere inside me that I would move past this. Now, the point is that if we do a little few sessions on dreaming, I really didn't feel like, when I looked at all my dream material, it was about that thick. I really didn't feel like giving you a quick little thing on dreaming, and then some of you have already done it, some of you have done stuff, and then, you know, you throw it aside, you do it for 2 days, and then you forget about it. I really didn't feel like doing that. I want to give you something that's really meaningful for all of you. And the question we need to ask right at the beginning of this particular session is, number one, do I want to work out my psyche and operate my human mind with its ordinary consciousness? Do I want to improve on that? Do I want to work with myself as Melanie and the psyche and all the crap that I've got in my life? Do I really want to work with that and operate better in that? Or can I realize that this is a temporary drama and I'm looking to my true nature to allow my whole life to be seen through it? And when I answered those questions, and I want you to answer, maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe because of all the years I had about, at any one given time, I had asked Bernice, because she worked for me at that stage, I had about 5 dream groups in a week. Okay, so I worked with everybody and all their dreams for years, and what they went through and how they dreamt and how they could change because of their dreams and everything. And then I myself belonged to a dream group of therapists. So I went to dream groups, and let me tell you, those therapists were sometimes awful. They'd bash us. Each of us would bash each other and say, why are you doing this? Why did you dream about this? What's wrong with you? This seems to be your repetitive patterns. You know, we looked at everything very, very clearly. So my point that I'm making for today is, maybe I've realized a lot in the work that I'm doing that so many people in the West, people I deal with or teach spiritually, have many hang-ups and much dramas and traumas and damage and habitual negative momentums in their ordinary mind, in their psyche, which is also called the substrate consciousness or the alaya consciousness, which a lot of you know about. It's also called that, and I'm going to give you a little bit of Ellen Wallace's stuff on that, because I did that work and needed to move beyond it. But that doesn't mean that others could just move past this without really tackling it. And dreams are a profound way of tackling your human rubbish, your human good things as well. But we don't need to tackle that, your human rubbish, because dreams tell it as it is. They tell you directly what you're doing, and we'll look at a few examples in a moment. So I don't know if anybody wants to say something, but maybe to get to a higher level past the psyche, we need to deal with those samsaric dreams, and then to the dreams of clarity and more lucidity, and finally to the clear light dreams, which don't have any content at all, but which tell us who we really are. So tell me what you feel about that. What are your points you want to make about that? Anybody?
Hi. I think it's a really great point you make about, do we want to work with the human psyche or transcend it? Yeah. And I think the reason it's so powerful to do both is because our dreams can show us parts of ourselves we didn't know that we had. We might not think of ourselves as an angry person in real life because we suppress it. Yeah. But suddenly we notice we're super angry in all of our dreams, or do horrible things in our dreams that in our real life we wouldn't do. So, well, real life in inverted commas, but it's a great way to notice your real ingrained habit conditioned patterns and to become aware of them. you know, it's a quicker way, perhaps than even through like seated meditation, which would take a very, very, very long time to uncover all of it. So,
yeah, and I think, you see, for me, dreaming was a natural thing I did, but meditation was hard for me in the beginning. Now I have my ways of meditating, and I'm not hung up about shamatha, and I've got to have it clear and all of that kind of thing. So it's not a problem for me to meditate, but it was a problem for me in the early days when I was doing Mahamudra, and you had to do all those meditations. Drove me nuts, Nick. Drove me absolutely nuts, because I kept thinking, why am I doing this, and why am I not enjoying this? And you know, when I look at all my work with dreams and what I learned from dreams, and I'll tell you about my own repetitive dreams as well, but when I looked at what I worked with dreams, it was amazing. And while we're on the subject, I'll tell you my one repetitive dream that I had from a very early age was that I was on the ground and there was a big aeroplane flying in the sky, not right above me, just over there. And then I'm looking at this aeroplane in my dream and it crashes. I don't see more of that. It crashes. Nobody could help me to understand that dream. I used to have it often, often, often when I was young. Now, when I got older and wiser, I even once was working with this psychiatrist who was really very good with dreams, and he tried to explain it. He got a little bit of it, but not everything that I understood by it. But what I understood much later was that I had come into this life with a great opportunity, open portal to unity with my true nature, with a great opportunity to teach and serve. And it's interesting, the service, because when people come to me and they don't understand anything about spirituality or that kind of thing, and I've got to go back to the psychology, I've got to confess, it does drive me a little bit mad, because I can see how quickly you can move past it. But I have to be patient, and I have to take people through that if that's where they are. But that dream was such an interesting dream, because I realized what had happened clearly for me in a previous life or previous lives was that I had ego, and that ego really took me away from enlightenment. And then I always go back to what Lama Yeshe said when he first met me. He said to me, you should have attained enlightenment and you didn't. And so that was a very important point. It was in his first interview with me before I even knew him in any way. And he said to me, you should have attained enlightenment and you didn't. And so I knew the reason for my failure of enlightenment was having this ego that thought it was very smart and very great. And I knew when I finally found the reason for that dream, that it was that if you fly in ego, Mr. Putin, if you fly, Mr. Jinping, if you fly, Mr. Netanyahu and all of you, you're going to crash. You're really going to crash. And I was observing this in my dream. It's a very important repetitive dream that I had. When you have repetitive dreams, they really are important. And when Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche wanted to go and study Tibetan Dream Yoga, the master he went to study with was one who said, you can't come to my course unless you bring me a dream, and then I'll tell you whether you can come to my course. So they all went. A few people couldn't dream that night, and they were so upset because they weren't allowed to go into the course. But he had this dream where he was this bus conductor, and he got on the bus, and he was giving out the tickets on the bus, and they all had a Tibetan letter R, which is, he didn't know what that meant at that time. It was right at the beginning of his Tibetan career. And he gave everybody the R, and the R is actually the creative force that comes from the Dharmakaya. So he gave out the creative force to everybody on that bus. And of course, he was immediately accepted for the course, which was really important for us. And some people who couldn't go to the course until they had a dream. And just to say one more thing, we also link the type of dreaming to death and the journey in the bardos. It's very important. The most important thing of all of this, including the bardos, is we get trapped in a bardo, we get trapped in a realm, we get trapped in our lives because we think it's real. And so right at the beginning, even if you do the Western psychology, you've got to see that everything around us, everything solid is illusory. And then you want to change and have a pure illusory thing, which we'll talk about in the dream state as well. But how we live and how we dream, how we live leads to how we dream, and how we dream leads to how we die, with or without awareness. And in death, the process starts the opposite way, because in dreaming, you start with the samsaric dreams, which are the dreams about your everyday life, but they're not necessarily about your everyday life. They're about things you have to learn, as Nicholas just said. And then you go to the dreams of clarity. I'll explain those. Those are where you have the experiences. I had millions of experiences. So when I got to the dreams of clarity, I understood those were dreams of clarity and more lucidity. And finally, the clear light without content. Now, when you die, it's the reverse. When you die, you go into the clear light, okay? That is the pure, no content, Dharmakaya of who you are. Then you go into the Bardo of Dharmata. That's where you see the dreamlike, pure, illusory visions. That's where you see them in the second Bardo. And if you don't recognize them and you don't understand them and you don't see them, you go into the Bardo of becoming. And that's again, goes back to, it's actually lower than the psyche, the it's not lower, it's deeper than the psyche. It goes into there. And when you come into the Bardo of becoming, you actually are looking at all your imprints again and all of that you look at. So in death, it's the reverse way than in dreaming the way we go. Anyone want to say anything? Anyone want to do anything? Because it's so important, this. It's also important for you to understand, hang on, the Alaya consciousness, where all my imprints are, I need to understand that better. And your dreams can help you to understand it, because your repetitive dreams are your repetitive imprints. Now, don't make me talk only me talking. You also talk a little bit if you want to. Say, talk, make it your own group. Then I'm going to give you so much stuff and so many things that I want to do. Anyone want to say anything? Or just quiet, and then you make me talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Okay, I'm happy because I love this subject matter. But it's really, really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at my whole background and work with dreaming, together with a quick review of some of the main Western dream theorists. And then we'll just launch into the Tibetan way of dreaming and looking at dreams and the bardos and what their most purpose is. And whatever purpose we use our sleep state, especially a conscious, lucid, mindful sleep state. So it can be applied, the same dream material can be applied in living and dying. In fact, in Tibetan Dream Yoga, we always train in the threes. We train in death, the intermediate state, and rebirth, or Dharmakaya, Sambhukakaya, Nirmanakaya, or sleeping, dreaming, waking. Those three states, we always train in those three states. It's really very interesting. And it's all for attaining liberation. Because even if you look at all your own stuff, and you look at all your own habitual rubbish and everything else, it's all about cleansing yourself so that you can go beyond that. Yes, no, got to free ourselves. Okay, let me give you a bit of background. Please butt in if you want to, because it's really important that all of you do. But from a young age, I always dreamed with a lot of awareness. I don't like all the techniques. Now, Charlie Morley gives such amazing techniques, which are really useful. And I really think you should read his stuff. I don't know how many of you had that booklet that he did, this one. It's very good. Lucid Dreaming Workshop with Charlie Morley. If you don't want to read his whole book, but he has written a book on it. And it's really good because he goes in and out of Tibetan, out of Buddhism and everything, which is really good. So you get both sides of it. But he's very, very, very good. He really does. And it's worth reading the stuff very much so. But with me, I, first of all, from a very, very, not from a young age as a child, but from an age when I started counseling bereavement and everything, I just automatically went in my dream state to help bereaved people, to help people who just died. I just got there long before I knew these teaching. I was always in the sleep state. I remember one thing. I remember that I had this young woman who got breast cancer, and then she used to come to my groups, not Buddhism, long before, and she was dying. And I remember having a beautiful session with her and her very young children, while she was still alive. And, they asked her questions like, will you be able to see me when we die? Things like that. And I let them talk all of that through. Anyway, she was getting really restless. She was ready to die, and we worked with her and everything. And then after she died, the night after she died, I saw her in my sleep state. She was jumping on this wall over and over and over the wall and back. She had this sweet little dress on. She was on top of the world, and she said, Melanie, I'm so happy. I'm so free. I'm so pleased. Tell all of them not to mourn for me. I'm absolutely great. I'd always had dreams like that. I had dreams of people who, like one young girl who lost her husband in a motorbike accident, and he told me, I dreamt the same night. And he told me, he said to me, he came to me and he said, I'm not dead. And I said, you are. He said, I can't be. I've got 2 young children and I've got this wife who needs me, and I can't be dead. And the whole night I spent telling him that he was dead, but that it would all be okay, that she would have enough in her. So I did these things from a very, very, very long ago. I always went and I met with people who died, and I met with all kinds of things. And those were just absolutely, okay for me to do. Lots of people, I had dreams like that, and my own. And then at the same time, I also trained in Jungian dream analysis, because that was very spiritual, the Jungian dream analysis with all that he did. Jung, I loved him. And then I used to have dreams of him. I used to have these dreams. I don't know if I projected those dreams or it was really him or whatever, but those were dreams of clarity. He used to come and teach me lots of things about the dream material when I was there. And it's funny because in those days, when people saw me, I gave so many lectures everywhere on dreams, on TV, on the radio, on everywhere, that when people used to see me, they used to say, there's the dream lady. I mean, I'm just telling you how much I was involved. They used to go, there's the dream lady. Can I tell you my dreams? I said, I don't think so, but yeah, if you really need to ask me. But, I was very, very involved with dream for many, many, many years, okay? And then you can ask Bernice. So I did this for about 10 years. My main tool of working with people was dream. And then Bernice was working for me then. And one day, what did I do, Bern? I came in and I said, close all the dream groups, close everything. She said, what? Are you a lunatic? That involves all the people. I said, I'm done with it. I now want to move into into something else is going to come. I really need to live. She thought I was completely mad and berserk. Do you remember that, Bern? He said, I can't believe it. I can't believe that you're giving this all up. Something in me just said, okay, enough, which will probably happen to me again in this life. Okay, enough, move on. You're going to do something else. So you better enjoy me while you've got me, because who knows what's next, on the agenda. I don't know. But anyway, when we go through some of these Western psychoanalysts and modern psychology, it helps us to understand the human psyche and its functioning, and also the unconscious and the subconscious mind. Now, that's a very interesting thing, because how does the unconscious and the subconscious equate with the alaya consciousness? And I want you to understand that the alaya consciousness is a deeper state than Freud's unconscious, Jung's collective unconscious. It's a deeper state than those two. So it's quite important for you to know that, okay? So just a brief little thing on each of the real good theorists. Freud saw dreams as the royal road to the unconscious. He was way ahead of his time, and he believed that dreams were the emergent consciousness of repressed unconscious desires, and especially unconscious sexual desires, okay? He was very revolutionary for his time, and he paved the way for further exploration. I came to that and I thought, no, that's not enough for me. But it was very revolutionary for his day. And then out of him, Jung was his disciple, was Freud's disciple, but Jung understood the limitations of stopping at the individual unconscious mind, okay, level. And he extended the dream theory to include a collective unconscious that belonged to a universal mind. Now, in a way, we are like that, because we have a universal Buddha nature, so that we can all understand that. But Jung's collective consciousness was a little bit different, and it had archaic sources. So he was much closer to the truth than was Freud. And he used these archetypal symbols from an instinctual rather than an intellectual or rational basis. So he used the shadow. I'm sure all of you know the shadow. He used the persona. He used the anima, the animus, the feminine and masculine. He introduced a whole dream language, and he understood its symbols. And what he introduced was, he said, here's the human self with a little letter S. And he compared the human self to the individuated self with a capital letter. Now, of course, you all know that the Buddha taught absolutely there was no self. The self consisted of the skandhas. The skandhas, none of them were tangible, but he believed Jung in a higher self. Now, in a way, I look at that, and he understood the whole of Eastern philosophy. In fact, he wrote an introduction to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Jung did. He knew so much more than he gave way to. But figure his position in those early times, okay? He couldn't, he tapped into so much more, but he couldn't write about it unless he could give scientific verification of it. Can you understand what he would have been like at that time? He needed to give scientific verification. Otherwise, all those psychiatrists and doctors would just throw out his theories. And he couldn't do it. So he in the end, it was so difficult for him. He had a complete mental breakdown, and he cured himself, not with a psychiatrist and medication. He cured himself by sitting in his country residence with a sand pit and doing sand mandalas like the monks do, and getting his mind right again and doing these sand mandalas over a long period of time and curing himself. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay. And he knew he had a patient, one of his patients, who didn't belong to the tribe that had these ancient sun rituals. This man who didn't belong to that tribe knew this ancient ritual. And so he said, hang on, this man is tapping into something that is universal and collective, the same as the Tibetan Buddhas. And it's that interconnection, he said, that we block, which, we block. And he said, that part of you is really compassionate and responsible to other human beings. So he got it, which was amazing. He really got it, but he couldn't give everything that he felt because of the scientific verification that was needed. And I used to have these wonderful dreams, and I used to, when I read his autobiography, I thought, just tell us a little more about this. Just tell us a little more about that. He couldn't. But I really understood that. He really understood that. And this is what he said. He said, dreams may give expression to ineluctable truths, to philosophical pronouncements, illusions, wild fantasies, memories, plans, anticipations, irrational experiences, even telepathic visions, and heaven knows what besides. Isn't that amazing? That a man of that time who really had this, but he had read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it was absolutely amazing. He had such deep insight. But Alan Wallace, it's very interesting. I just want to get you what he says. Where is it now? I just want to get you where it is. Okay. Alan Wallace said, before enlightenment, we encounter a state of consciousness more subtle than the psyche, not as transcendent as the primordial consciousness, but it's a second mental field, and he called it the substrate consciousness. We can call it the alaya consciousness. And all of you are very in touch with the alaya consciousness, wherein all the imprints lie. And once you know that, he said it's different from, you can either call it alaya vijnana. He said it's different from the subconscious or the unconsciousness of Freud's teachings, and different from the collective consciousness of Jung's teaching, okay, with all the archetype. He said it's more fundamental than the subconscious. A subconscious is considered to be the source of the entire psyche, including Western subconscious. He says there's an overlap between the psyche and the substrate consciousness, but this presents a deeper and more detailed picture of what the Western psychology calls the unconscious. So it's very interesting, isn't it? Talk to me. Let me hear that you're getting something out of it. I'm not just talking to the wall. What do you think, Nick? Because you're the only one that's prepared to come and give a viewpoint.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so interesting and so valid. I think there's just so much for us to work with. And what really struck me, and I'm this year, I'm trying to really recommit to a dream practice. Good. Because we've got so much time that we're wasting. We're not looking at our dream material and working with our dreams. And I can't remember who it was, but one of the masters had said, on the topic of things such as, which I know you haven't got to yet, lucid dreaming and everything else, is can we just learn to accept our dreams for how they are? And that's also quite an interesting, it's very, very interesting. So it's not only about working with them to fix things, because I think, especially in Western psychology, there's this desire to want to fix ourselves and understand ourselves and sort ourselves out and resolve our dreams. But in fact, taking the Buddhist approach to that is, how can we find just acceptance with who we are within our dream? So
very, very, very important. And I think that many of the theorists did that. For example, Fritz Perls, his Gestalt theory. Now, the Gestalt theory is very, very interesting because he used dreams as a way of integrating and making the psyche whole. And, that is also a very, very interesting thing to do. The symbols in the dreams, he said, are projections, part of ourselves that we project into the dream that need to be integrated. And he said his awareness was that neurotic functioning, when we are neurotic, is caused by disowning parts of yourself. Like say you've got, for example, a part of yourself you don't like, okay? You disown it. And so he said we need to reclaim these unacknowledged aspects of ourselves by dramatizing part of the dream. I'll give you some examples now. As we become the parts of the dreams in Gestalt technique, we gain insight into our own functioning and acceptances of ourselves. So, for example, I just took a couple of things that I was working with people when I wrote this long ago. This girl said, I have this recurring dream. I'm a dry riverbed. So I would say to her, okay, become the dry riverbed. And so she'd close her eyes and she'd say, I'm the dry riverbed. There's no water flowing through me, no emotion. I'm actually dried out in my life. I've got nothing more to give. I feel like the dry riverbed. Now, acknowledging that is so helpful because people who feel like a dry riverbed never acknowledge that. They just go on through life playing a little victim role, and I feel like I'm a dry riverbed, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, I can work with it. So the work that I would do with people in Gestalt, I used a lot of Gestalt, was to make them go back into the dream. And how are we going to get water into that riverbed, that dry riverbed? Well, maybe if you start to open up more to people and stop being afraid, maybe they will give you the contribution of the water, etc., etc. Another one was, I think I also had, this was somebody in my group who said, this jumbo jet in my dream was trying to take off and couldn't take off. And I kept having that dream. Okay, be the jumbo jet. So closing her eyes, she said, I'm the jumbo jet. I'm so heavy. I've got so much stuff inside me. I just can't take off. So, when she opens her eyes, then you say, okay, what is it that you're carrying? Why are you carrying? What are you burdened by? Maybe you need to dump a few of your crap out of your jumbo jet. Maybe you've made yourself too large for your own good and you can't take off in the world. I'm just giving you examples quickly. We were sitting one night over dinner, and I was into dreams in a big way. And so my husband had this partner at that time, and he said to me, Melanie, I hear you always do dreams. He said, well, I have this recurring dream. He said, I'm chewing a bit of gum. He said, and the gum gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't really understand until I can't chew anymore. And I go, you've certainly bitten off more than you could chew. Okay, you just look at the symbolism in the dream language. It's amazing. It tells you everything. And funny, he did bite off more than he could chew, and he really hasn't been very good. Well, this came from one of the books that I was reading at the time, from Mark. It was represented hopelessness and powerlessness. He said, I am a marshmallow floating in the middle of an ocean. Okay, now think of a marshmallow. It just will dissolve in the thing. The impact of imagery speaks for itself. The marshmallow is wet and in the process of being dissolved. The universe feels like a huge ocean and you're lost in it. Mark's personality is in a process of disintegration. We must get him out of his ocean of despair. He's in crisis and must be reorientated. So I'm just giving you a couple of not Edgar Cayce, sorry, of Fritz Perls when he used the Gestalt technique, and I found it really, really, really very interesting. And sometimes I would take, like somebody would say, I dreamt about my sister last night, or I dreamt about this friend of mine. Then I'd go, give me an adjective for the friend, because you know your dream doesn't necessarily mean you're dreaming about that person. The dream is usually a part of yourself. So I would say, without thinking, just give me an adjective for that person, you know, and then they'd go smart, or she answers quickly, or she's pathetic, or whatever it is. I said, okay, now take that as a part of you, because in your dreams, you put all of those aspects of yourself in. It's fascinating, you know, and I haven't been doing that work for a long time. I do it. When people come to me with a dream, I often do that kind of work, you know, even though I may not tell them spiritually, but then I usually take it and take them further, because if I was working with Mark, the marshmallow floating, then I would say, you really feel like you're in a process of disintegration. However, perhaps that might be quite a good thing, because when you've disintegrated your whole human psyche, you can then become who you really are. Did you know that there was a part of you that is totally awake and different to your human self? You need to get to that part. I would say that to people now. I didn't say it then. I would give them psychological techniques of, you know, trying to work with it. Okay, any questions or points or something you dream about? Dare you to say it to me? Come on, don't tell me none of you ever dream these kind of dreams, for goodness sake. Why are you all so quiet? Am I intimidating you? Am I? No. Why are you so quiet?
Mel, it's been such a long time since you've actually gone anywhere near the subject. And
I
for
have.
me,
I've gone near the subject, but on a higher level.
on
Yeah.
not like you're doing now, because this is how you used to operate.
Yeah.
And it's
I realize, Boone, that if I
yes.
don't help people with this, they're going to be stuck with their human rubbish. Okay. So I realized maybe I wasn't stuck with my human rubbish because I've moved past it. But how many people have moved past? Look, you're all so quiet.
And this is what's going through my mind now, that when you stopped it, everybody else stopped it too. We didn't go further. So we're still stuck with it.
You can't do it just with me. You've got to do
No,
it. Wait, okay, Mimi, let's see yours. She says, I dream of being unprepared for a big exam. Okay, that's a universal dream, okay, being unprepared for a big exam, because that is your own feeling. She can't turn her camera on because there's something wrong, but it's your own feeling of not trusting yourself. That's a very common one. I've had that dream lots of times, where you go to an exam and you're not prepared for the exam. Or sometimes in my dreams, I had a pencil and the pencil couldn't write dark enough the answers, even if I knew them. Okay. But Mimi, that's a very important dream, because not being prepared for the exam, you now have to ask yourself, what am I unprepared for in life? When now that I know that I actually have my Buddha nature, I'm prepared for any event, absolutely any event. I can take it and I can go through it for sure. And so look at that dream and do it with yourself and say, what do I feel unprepared for? Maybe I am prepared, but I keep on pushing myself down and not going forward with what I really want to say. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Makes a lot of sense. So I think that's very, very important. And I think these dreams are very important, because I think they do help you to understand. And I think what I realized when I was trying to get this ready was that a lot of people don't actually, are not ready. Like as Bern said, was waiting for you to give me this and this and this. Well, you better not wait for me. I might be gone in another day or two. I might just be gone off the planet, you know. How do I know? So it's very important that you digest this and that you've got everything you need. And I kind of feel, well, now I've done all the recordings I can, and now we're not even sure we can afford someone to actually take them off and do the pamphlets and do the things. So we're not even sure we can afford that at the center anymore. So I said, well, then I just won't record my stuff unless somebody comes up and says, I'll do it for you. Maybe I just won't record. Maybe I've recorded enough. I've done it for about 3 years solidly. So there's tons and tons of stuff. And now on a Tuesday, I've taken right from the beginner's stuff. I'm doing 6 sessions so that if any of you want to go back to the Tuesday night stuff, it's got all the material we need for the whole Buddhist path, going into primordial consciousness. So it's important now. So I thought I'll do this whole thing on dreaming now, and then it's recorded. So whoever wants to go back, I'll tell my Tuesday night people, go and watch it if you're interested in dreaming and all of that, because I'll do a couple of sessions taking us right into Tibetan Dream Yoga. But let's do the psychology first and see how it does. Betsy, what are you thinking? You've always got a lot.
I see sometimes that I'm dead. And yes, I'm dead. And I see myself really up there. And I see all the people crying and white flowers. And I'm thinking, why all these people are crying? I'm so happy. What is it?
That could certainly be a projection, but I think for you also, I think that could be just what will happen when you die. But I think that's what's very important in what you're saying is that basically when you come into real Buddhism, you actually understand that even though you're totally involved in all the dramas of your children and all the dramas of everything going on in your life, but it's temporary, it's transient, and when you've finished with it, you've finished. You can have a cut-off point, you know. And I think you're watching them, and maybe you need to allow them to be more independent, because I think what you went through earlier was really, you know, a little while ago with all those deaths and everything, was really an important time where you have to stop being all things to all people in your family and everything else. And I think you're seeing that at death, they're going to really mourn, because how will anybody do what they need to do? Well, tough luck. You know, it's just too bad if they can't. I mean, you've got to give what you can while you're there, but maybe you realize that all of this is just temporary and transient. And that's the most important thing in Tibetan Dream Yoga. So I think that's very important dream. But let me just give you 2 more theorists very, very quickly. One is Edgar Cayce. I don't know how many of you ever read Edgar Cayce. They were very interesting, his books. Cayce. He, at that time, at a very early age, started adding the whole spiritual dimension of dreaming and working with dreams. And his philosophy said, dreams solve the problems of the dreamer, as well as taking him to the heights and potentials of spirituality. And he did lots of healing on people through their dream work. And then finally, Stephen LeBurge brought lucid dreaming to the West. Lucid dreaming is having conscious recognition of the dream while you are dreaming. He proved scientifically what happened to individuals when they dreamt lucidly. He introduced many techniques, you know, all those different techniques, recognizing the dream symbols, etc., while you are dreaming, for assisting people to dream lucidly. But of course, the masters of the East had been practicing lucid dreaming for centuries. You know, when these Western theorists suddenly come up and they're suddenly telling you about their wonderful discovery. I mean, the Eastern masters have been doing this for eons of time, you know, lucid dreaming, going out of your body and everything. I've been doing it from the beginning of when I started dreaming. And there's a big difference between the motivation for lucid dream in the Western or the Eastern cultures. Both aim for fully conscious reflective awareness in the dream state. We'll speak about the differences at some other time. But the West is all about I, me, myself, and can be used for psychological integration. I was horrified when I did lots of dream work to find that people actually learned how to lucidly dream and then went to other people's houses to see things they had in their houses or secrets they had or whatever the case is, because they wanted to be a step ahead of them. I mean, that's disgusting. That's not using lucid dreaming to go and spy on people and things like that. That's the wrong motivation entirely. In lucidity in Tibetan Buddhism, in living, dreaming, and dying, is to develop awareness of the awakened state and to liberate ourselves and others from the illusionary world. That's why you go dreaming out of your body. Now, I go dreaming out of my body, and I'll give you the Dalai Lama's just now, not now. We're going to do some meditation, but I'll give you the Dalai Lama's how you form the dream body, which goes very well with the lucid dreaming. But before we commence with Tibetan dream techniques, let us look at dreams for our relative lives and how they can benefit us, especially recurring dreams. Surya Das says, dreams offer us a huge natural resource, a mine of the gold of self-knowledge. If we use the content of dreams as a way of getting to know ourselves, our shadow sides, which are the parts we try and banish, okay? So the shadow sides come up, our anima, if we're male, our animus, if we're female, our persona, all of that comes up when we actually do it. And at night, he says, when we're dreaming and sleeping, it's like the theater of shadows, the theater of the mind, in that all that is in us is more uninhibitedly displayed for our investigation and our appreciation. He says, but there's also fun and tremendous delight in this practice. In dream work, he says, we're like a magician who plays with phenomena, who can change appearances. We can see through dreams, not only see our own projections, but look right back at the projector, the mind that projected that dream. We can do that in our dreams. And we'll speak over these next couple of times on what we can really accomplish during dreams and how much we can grow spiritually from being awake in our dream state. Because dreams provide us with methods to improve the quality of our ordinary lives, even before we get to see how we can use the dreams to help ourselves and improve our spiritual lives. Okay, they really give us a chance to see the most amazing things. And Surya Das, who was a Buddhist monk, he was a Jewish guy that became a Buddhist monk, he said, you are the dream and the dreamer. You are the producer and the actor, the creator and the creation in this dream theater, this cosmic pageant. And dreams introduce us to all the other dimensions of experience, to other lifetimes. I've had lots of previous life dreams, to other lifetimes, to other worlds, to the afterlife, to going in and seeing where you're going to go after you die. I mean, dreams are amazing. They give us all of this in every conceivable way. So before we even go on to the Tibetan, some of the Tibetan things, let's just look at all of this. How does this affect us? How many of you feel inhibited in how you're going on your spiritual path, that you feel inhibited because you're always looking at your own limitation? It's really important, all of this. And when this morning, when I was looking at all my dream material, I thought, okay, I threw all my dream journals away. But this was my book that I had in India called Where Rainbows Come From. I mean, amazing that when I went to buy a book, you know, that I wanted to take with me on retreat, I saw this book, Where Rainbows Come From. And I thought, that's it, that's my book, you know. And I hardly write down dreams anymore, only if they're really special. Like sometimes when I meet with masters or I have a most amazing insight and things like that, then I write it in this dream journal. So I was looking at my dream journal, and I just realized when I'm on retreat, even when I go for a month, my dream state is the part of the life. Okay, so in that dream state, I mean, I remember once that I was in India, and Jamkong Control Rinpoche, who's a really very important Lama, he came to do a 3-year retreat in the same area as I was doing my retreat. And I was so excited, and I said to Guru Rinpoche, please let me just meet this wonderful guy. He was a wonderful guy, his last incarnation. Taisitu was supposed to go in a car to somewhere, and he went instead. He insisted on going and doing this journey, and there was an explosion in the car, and he got killed and had to come back again. You know, Taisitu told me about this. So can you imagine the gratitude that Taisitu, he wanted Taisitu to continue his incarnation, so he took his place and got killed in this car that Taisitu was supposed to go in. Most amazing story. So he was in retreat. So I was going, just let me bump into him in the grounds. I just want to see this beautiful master. I know he's in retreat. And then I had a dream on the last night. Let me see if I can find it. Such a beautiful dream, if I can find it. I don't know where it is. Anyway, in the dream, just let me see if I can find it quickly, because it was really a beautiful dream. Any case, I'll find it and describe it to you another time. I don't know where it was, but I mean, I had this dream, and in this dream, I saw my retreat room was right next door his, and his had like wire, and I still remember that dream, wire and all sorts of things in it to keep him in, because he wasn't going to stay there by himself. So in my sleep state, I'm right next to his retreat room, and his attendant has built all this wire and everything around him, so he can't get out, because otherwise people will go mad. They'll want to see him and everything. So I'm in my room, and the next thing is I'm sitting on his bed in the dream, because I wanted to see him so badly. And there he is. And I said to him in the dream, I'm so excited to meet you. I'm just so excited. I'm here and I'm right near you, and I wanted to meet you, and now I meet you. And I've got the whole dream of what he told me when I was there. He was a young guy, very young at that time, you know. But those are the kinds of dreams when I'm on retreat. I have these incredible dreams. Once I had a dream when I was on retreat where Taisitu, I kept going to him and asking him questions, and he said, you don't need the answers to those questions. You really don't. You know the answers yourself. And he wanted to talk to me about other things, and I wanted him to tell me about my practice. So I had this dream. It was the most unbelievable dream. It was about a baby, and I ran down following Taisitu Rinpoche. I can't remember the whole dream. And then I had this baby, and then I ran in. When he went into his office, I ran in and I said, Rinpoche, I must ask you how to feed my baby. And then I looked, and the baby wasn't there anymore. I lost the baby in the dream, you know. And so I said to him, oh my goodness, I really lost the baby. I'm going to have to go and find the baby, Rinpoche. I wanted to ask you how to feed the baby. Anyway, that was, the dream went around like that. And then in the end, what I realized why I lost the baby was because he'd been telling me all along, you do not need the mother's milk from me. We could talk about other things and it will help you in your practice anyway. You don't need the mother's milk. So I lost the baby in the dream and I couldn't get the mother's milk. And he kept telling me, you don't need to have your things answered. You just be there present with it. So it's really very funny. I have all these millions of dreams with all the masters when I'm on retreat. It's absolutely amazing. So you can use these things. And I think it's really helpful if you use some of these techniques. And I'm happy to work with any of you on your repetitive dreams, especially to see what you can learn and what you have to do. But it's really important to have your motivation. So let's do, anybody want to say anything, and let's do a little meditation. Anyone? No? You're all very quiet, I've got to say. Gail was here, she'd ask a million things. Okay, let's do a little meditation. So, I want you to just breathe in and breathe out. In future sessions, we'll do some of the Tibetan dream techniques. We'll do them in meditation in these groups, these couple of groups that I'll give you. We'll do some of those. But I didn't want to go there today. I just want you to open yourselves up to realize that your psyche, your primordial consciousness, your Alaya consciousness, the different levels of depth are so broad and wide, like the sky, and that you are so much more than you give yourself benefit to. Don't look to anybody, least of all to me, and think I need to get this from Melanie. You don't. You've got it all in yourselves. You really have got it all in yourselves. And just breathe in and breathe out and come to this present moment. And just be completely open to everything that is happening in your life and to the fact that you're here in this morning to really open your consciousness up completely and totally. So just bring yourself to a very, very peaceful state where all your hassles and your psychology and your negative emotions, just let it all go up like colored balloons into the sky. And you just watch it all. You don't touch it. You just realize the illusory nature. We'll do some beautiful meditations on the illusory nature. You realize the illusory nature of everything. Padmasambhava wrote his book on liberation, and in it he really teaches you how you can actually work out the illusory nature of absolutely everything. And you can use your pure illusory body to go out into the world, into the dream world, learn and study and open up. And remember, the motivation for the Western lucid dreaming and the motivation for the Eastern lucid dreaming are totally different. In the Western, it's all about I and me and myself and finding me. In the Eastern, it's a general motivation to become aware of everything that you're able to do and everything that you're able to do for others. So for this morning, I want you to try and see any of your repetitive dreams that you have. And if you can't, if you haven't had your dreams, it means you're closing yourself to it. You're not remembering. You do have them, but you're not remembering. Then just for today, bring to your consciousness the things that you know that are limiting you in this life. giving your opinion, never believing in yourself, never allowing your full creativity to actually go, never allowing, always criticizing people, always thinking of yourself as inferior. Most of you are not critics, but you think of yourself as inferior. All the things in your life that you need to look at, because once you look at them, you'll definitely have a dream tonight about them. So just use 1 or 2 minutes to look deeply into your psyche and look at what is there that trips you up. And if you can remember any dreams, then remember them. What trips you up? What stops you from flying out, as Betty said, into white flowers, even if everybody else is crying? What are your limitations? What are your repetitive dreams? And more so, if you're blocked at night and you don't remember your dreams, open yourself up. Look at that creative awe in the midst of your Buddha nature, going out into the world in rainbow-colored light, really transforming everything in the environment and coming back into the I in your heart. Just allow that before you go to sleep at night. You'll have clear vision dreams. And it doesn't matter if your dreams are all, so to speak, psychological things in the beginning. It'll change as you open up and you become amenable to really look at yourself and who you are and what holds you back. And even some of your negative qualities. Can you pick them up, nurture them, and let them go? Can you, as Nicholas said in the beginning, accept who you are and what you've got to do in this life? Enjoy this time, because when I take you to the much higher teaching, it's not so easy. But do me a favor, all of you, while we're doing this, get a little dream journal and write down in the morning what you're dreaming, what you're feeling. Just write it down so that you've got some idea. And you can do the Gestalt technique by yourself. You can say, I am this empty space, I am this frightened child, I am this, whatever parts you've pushed away from yourself. You bring them back, you bring them into yourself, which is really important. Manda, you didn't talk today. I forgot you were there. You've always got lots to say. Let's hear what you're feeling. Just unmute. We can't hear you. Just unmute. You've got to go to the unmute button. No? Okay, she'll figure it out. Anyone else want to say anything? Mimi, you can't. Denny, Jill, Patricia, Jade. any of you want to say anything? I've got, if you see the amount of notes that I've got of all the Tibetan stuff and all the Eastern stuff and all the Western stuff, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Are you enjoying today? Do you like that? Okay.
Mel, I'll recommend, the Charlie Morley book. So he's got his first 2 books were very much, he's got a number of books now, and the first few were more about the Tibetan Dream Yoga and then lucid dreaming. But he's got this one book, which is actually, it's so fantastic. I think it's called something like Dreaming Through Your Shadow. And it's all about recognizing your shadow aspects in your dreams and using your dreams to transform them. And he says, he also talks about keeping a dream diary. And obviously, because that makes you more aware of your dreams. And then if your shadow isn't obvious to you, he says, you actually, before you go to sleep, you invite your shadow to come into your dream. But after a few weeks, once you've got your awareness up, then you ask yourself, okay, tonight I want my shadow to come into the dream. And it really works. I was quite surprised how stuff starts to come up, and he takes you through the whole process. It's excellent. So if anyone's interested, I could really recommend that.
I'd like to see that book. He's excellent. And in fact, when he was here last, he phoned me. He wanted something or another from me. And I said, Charlie, it's about time you came into one of our groups. So perhaps I'll invite him during this period and say, come on, just give us 2 hours, come in. You don't have to prepare stuff. We'll just tax your brains a little bit, He's very, very good. He really is good with lucid dreaming and with all his stuff now. He's really matured a lot. He really has, and I think it's really good. So I think maybe we'll get him. Would you like him to come? It's very good.
It's just your microphone. So now it's starting to work. Hello.
Okay, then tell us. You've got your.
Can you hear me now, Mel?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Always got technical problems, so there we go. Basically, Mel. Okay. I just need to get the picture back now. Sorry, this is really not good. So everyone's waiting for me. So.
Okay.
Okay. Don't worry, Mel. I don't need the picture, so I'm going to just speak to you. I have the same dream that Marianne has, about writing the exams and being unprepared. But it's all the time. It's a nonstop dream. But it has a sequence as well, which is that I then discover when I don't do well in the exam that I was wasting my time in any event because I've already passed all the exams. So the fact that I'm going back and trying to rewrite the writing exams, which I've already passed, and wasting my time, and then the relief to know that I've already passed all the exams and I don't have to do anything. And I don't know why. And I keep on having the same dream every second, third day. You've already passed all the exams. So that was the sequel to it.
What does your dream mean? That you've already passed it? I think you can apply it to every single person. What does it mean? What does it mean, basically? If you've already passed your exam, then what the hell are you doing, fearful, writing it again when you've already done it? Isn't that
yes, and then the relief to find out that you've already done it and you shouldn't even be repeating over and over the things where I think we've been to levels of consciousness and what we're doing is we're going backwards instead of going forwards to higher levels of consciousness.
Isn't it wonderful that you keep getting that dream? Because
non-stop.
You've always,
it's driving me nuts.
No, but you've always been so perceptive in terms of I've known you for years, and you've always been so perceptive in terms of the spirituality. But I think that you get so caught up in your life all the time that even though you have the best intention to keep on going on and on with it, you can't make the space. And one can make a real error with that, because look what you're doing. You're going to write an exam that you've already written. It means you don't have the confidence to actually set aside what you've done and what you need to do in the future. You're just going back all the time. Like I know with you, we see you, then we don't. Then we see you, then we don't. Then we see you, then we don't. Don't you think that whole dream is that basically, in order to really go forward, you have to give regularity to it. You have to see, I've passed those exams. I must now go on to a new level. I must have the confidence to do it and everything, instead of going back. But I can tell you, your dream applies to everybody here, all of them, because a lot of people go back. I don't understand this. They've already passed it, and it's really, really important. And even Bern, when she used to get shocked because I was going on another level, and she used to go like, hang on, I'm holding on to you. Don't go too fast and everything. No, of course you can. All of you can. So get rid of that now. Let it go. See, I don't have to go back and do it, but I have to make regular time and space so that I can do that launching pad. That's what you need, a launching pad.
Yeah, I agree.
Very much.
In fact, just to an extent that I feel deeply that I should get rid of, although I can't at the moment, is the law practice, because it's just the worst energy on the planet. And just go spiritual, because or Buddhism, or I don't know, I just just go into the other side of me, or who I really am. Because I'm just messing around with this stuff called law, and it's nothing. It's just so harmful and so negative.
It's true.
And it's killing my soul. It's killing who I am.
And you know what? I think we all did. I watch a lot of news so that I can give calls, but now I've started to realize half of it's fake. Half of the blooming news that we're listening to is fake, and it's really ridiculous, to keep going back there when we can move on. So you take that dream and end it now. Go back into your dream and finish it and say, hey, put your graduation gown on and move. And maybe in your law, do things that are really meaningful for you. It's difficult when you're in a profession that you've got to do things the way people tell you to do it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so listen, let's carry on with this. We'll go on to the Dalai Lama's stuff, Guru Rinpoche's stuff, how the Tibetan path works, but we're going to go back and forth and back and forth to really look at what you can all get out of the dream material and everything, which is very important. So let's dedicate for all sentient beings, okay? This whole world is just full of sentient beings who are unaware, who are not getting where they're going, who are suffering very badly. And through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, all the beings in the wars everywhere. And thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And may they be able to go off, take off, and really go beyond all these interdependent, co-arising imprints that we stick with. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jeganachi bala tropaye sipe sole doa dro warsho. Into that.